I'm Dax.
And I'm Em.
And this is Full His House.
Your Full House Fancast.
And we are on episode 3, the first day of school, originally aired October 2nd, 1987. The synopsis is Danny, Jesse, and Joey try to convince Stephanie that school is cool while DJ tries to make a clean escape. What were your initial thoughts on this episode?
My overall thoughts, it was relatable. That's for sure. I think all of us can relate to it because we all had to go through middle school. It doesn't matter what your later years of school look like. But I think elementary school and for some middle school, I like to say for most, but we never really know. I don't want to exclude anybody. But no, it was extremely relatable. I think we all kind of had that nervous factor of going to like a new school and a new class with people who you really didn't know. When you go into a new place and you don't really know anybody, especially as a kid, I think it takes a large toll on you. And this was a good episode for that.
Yeah, I think it did a great job of showing the different types of insecurities you could be having going into your first day of school at different ages. And knowing that and reinforcing that you have to do that kind of multiple times in your life, especially if you're one of those kids who moves around a lot. You know, there's just so much going into a new situation. So, yeah, I think it was a really, really cool and cute, sweet, fun episode.
I couldn't agree more, especially when you said like it shows it over kind of multiple stages because, yeah, I mean, if you were someone like myself who moved around a lot, I went to 4 different elementary schools. So I moved around a lot. I was in that situation very, very often. But even if you're not someone who moves around a lot, you can still be put in that situation like what DJ ends up in, where, you know, you're going to the same school as your friends, but you get no classes with them and you feel separated because of the fact that you have no classes with your best friend. Right.
It's definitely, like you said, probably the most relatable that we've come across so far. But we start in the girls' bedroom. DJ and Kimmy are strategizing their first day of school to pass, like the best way to pass notes in the back of the classroom, which I think is pretty cute. I mean, it's like, all right, this isn't my first rodeo. I know I know all the bad things I want to do, and I know all the strategies to be able to do it.
I get it. I think that me and you are still, we're old enough at our point to have had that experience of having to pass notes organically. Like when I hit middle school was when like cell phones became like a thing, at least in my house, right? So that's when you would kind of, you know, send off a text to your friend here and there or whatever. But before then, especially in elementary school, we had to pass them organically. So I was always trying to find a creative way to like get this piece of paper that's been folded up 16 times to as small as possible to, you know, the other side of the room.
You know, and this is maybe a little bit of a tangent, but I didn't grow up with this, but I encountered it in high school where if somebody's phone went off, the entire classroom would just start coughing to make it harder for the teacher to trace down where. And this had happened to me in high school. Nobody let me in on the joke, because I don't think I was in the age group for it, but also it was more of a public school thing. I went to Catholic school for the first like 11 years. So everyone's coughing and like I'm just looking around, not doing it. And the teacher like kind of appreciated me for that. And I was like, no, I'm not a good kid. I just don't know what's happening, you know? But yeah, was that ever a thing for you?
You know, it happened a couple times, but it wasn't in like all classes. I think that it was more so like at least where I grew up at, was more like a group thing. Like if you happen to be in a class with the majority of your friends, you might get something like that. But no, for the most part, when cell phones became a thing, most of us were smart enough to just put our cell phones on like silent or something. And if it did ring, the teacher would just take the phone. There wasn't much hiding you could do at that point.
Right. Yeah. Which always freaking sucked. But anyway, Steph is trying on clothes. She feels like all of her options are too preschool for her right now, which I think is super cute. She's already kind of growing out of her clothes. She's 5 years old. And the girls tell her that there's really nothing to worry about when it comes to kindergarten. All you have to know is the Pledge of Allegiance, and they recite it super duper fast.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if you ever played the game of trying to say stuff super fast as a kid. When I was a kid, it was the itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini thing.
Oh no, I remember those were that commercial was everywhere when we were growing up, and it was definitely a thing trying to say it as quickly as possible because those commercials would. I know there was one specifically where they would just speed it up every time they said it, and it would go through that in the entire commercial. I remember that, and it was definitely a thing. It was that one and the Advantix theme song that they did for a while.
Man, that's crazy. But in this case, tis that super speedy Pledge of Allegiance, and the men enter with Michelle covered in chocolate.
I think it was ketchup, but I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it may have been ketchup.
It was something, and they announced that Kimmy is late, and DJ instructs her to set her watch back a half hour so that it makes it look like she lost track of time, which is actually pretty genius. Which would no longer work these days because all of our phones are connected to the internet, which automatically gives us the perfect and most accurate time.
Yeah, I think the best you could do would be like change the time zone in your phone so that it shows a different time. That would be the closest you'd get, but it would have to be a whole hour setback at least. For those who
Yeah,
need that at home, you could just change the time zone. It'll change the time on your phone altogether, and you won't be able to tell.
that would be just as sus, but I feel like that would be even more sus. Like you have to go through a whole process to do that. You know, if you're
Yeah.
like your clock, your watch could just freeze one day and then resume and then be off for a while.
Well, I mean,
Whereas to change, that's so crazy.
how much is your secret worth to you? Is it worth going through the work? It just comes down to
Yeah,
that.
it's worth a shot. It's worth a shot. We definitely had our version of you're never going to get away with this type stuff. So
Oh,
I
100%.
won't judge too hard to anyone who's doing that. The men leave to give Michelle a bath, and Joey is in the shower in a hilarious getup that Danny describes as the most terrifying shower scene since Psycho. The
I
girls pull up a
mean,
seat.
I mean, look, on one hand, he's not wrong, but on the other hand, he was giving like kiddie pool vibes, and I was kind of here for it.
I thought, I just see him as so non-threatening that I just think it was so funny. And I was like, I thought it was super cool because it's like, yeah, he's going to take every opportunity to have the most fun with whatever the situation is. And that's one of the reasons why I love Joey so much.
I think the only thing we were missing were like the arm floaties, and it would have just been complete.
Oh my God, you're right.
Right?
Oh man. Okay, that's pretty great. The girls pull up a seat and because they know that something funny is going to happen, but Jesse kicks them out. And it is revealed that the laugh machine had a situation where somebody called out sick. So Joey is now available for the 9:30 primetime slot, which I mean, that's really exciting for Joey. I
I'm
mean,
gonna
we
give a
already
little clap
know.
here.
Yeah, a little clap. Like we already know that he's like a working comedian and
Mm-hmm.
it's a pretty big deal for him to have this. So I'm like, super excited for him.
100%. I think that, like he said in the scene, it's definitely his big break, so he has to take advantage of it. I understand the nerves that comes along with it, but you don't get this chance very often, especially just handed to you because somebody else wasn't able to make it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they say you need the talent, but you also need a little bit of luck. And this is definitely his little bit of luck moment. So it's
Yes.
exciting. Stephanie wakes up DJ in the middle of the night to ask for more help with first day prep. And she is trying to recite what she can remember of the Pledge of Allegiance. I love the part where she says of some states of America because I vibe with that very, very, very much. And she mistakes to the public, which understands, which just is so. It's just so funny. I mean, she has the cadence, you know what I mean? She's got the cadence and the general idea. So you got to give it up. And she's going into it with that amount of knowledge. The actually learning it is going to be a snap.
You know what? I actually prefer her version of it. I feel like it speaks more to my soul than the original one does. If I had the choice, I would definitely go back and say it her way. And we should just keep it that way, realistically. I don't know why we didn't adapt to it.
Agreed. So Jesse and Joey finish watching Michelle, and they are talking about a date that Jesse has later that night. And Joey asks another exotic dancer, which, what's wrong with that? And Jesse says she's a ballerina. Okay, she's a topless ballerina, which again, fire.
Look, a lot of the moves they do on that pole are basically like a ballerina. The bending, the flexibility, they're on par. They're on par. So he wasn't technically lying, but he didn't divulge the full truth.
They're dancers, and like, you know what, topless or not, she can still be a great dancer and she's a full human being. Also, anybody who's out there who may or may not be in the dancing community, I'm sure that your blood is boiling right now because we are using the term ballerina. I will acknowledge the fact that ballerina is the highest honor of dance that you can actually have, and we are using the term loosely right now. Don't inbox me. I love you. I love that community.
Look, we are not
Um,
dancers. We don't mean any disrespect by any of it. Take this from non-dancers, period. We're kind of ignorant.
somewhat. Yeah, yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
when it comes to dance, I'm pretty ignorant. I've When it comes to dance, I look to K-pop, so that should give you your standard for me. Just take my opinion when it comes to that with like a grain of salt and leave it there. Wash it away with some water. We cool.
The thing is, I studied musical theater later in life, and later in life in the dancing or any excellence really when it comes to like playing instruments or gymnastics or anything later in life is like 10 and above.
Mm-hmm.
So I only know enough to know that I have no business, you know what I mean? Like in there. Because the other thing, and I'll just briefly say, the way that my roommate has explained it is he's like, well, yeah, you're competing with 12-year-olds who have like 30 years of experience. And it's like, yeah,
Man,
exactly. That's what that is. But yeah, we love our strippers, we love our ballerinas, we love our dancers, we love you all. Um, so Joey shifts back to being nervous about his show tonight, and they talk a little bit about the moment they fell in love with their passions. Jesse talks about the first time he saw Elvis and does a whole pseudo performance of Elvis, and Joey is fanboying over it and asks for another song, where we end up with Jesse singing "Love Me Tender" as they make eye contact in the tub, and Michelle is kind of just watching on the side. Danny walks in looking disgusted, and freaked out, he walks away to their suds and they're singing. I thought this, or I think this whole scene is one of the funniest in the entire show.
oh, 100%. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it would have been more hilarious if Danny had got a little, if he would have gotten like a little verse or like a lyric, a little sentence, something in there before he left or as he was leaving to kind of to kind of get it going again. I think that would have been hilarious. But overall, I thought it was really cutesy. I thought it was absolutely hysterical. Though I am not familiar with Elvis or most of his music or his life or him as a person. So
Oh,
forgive me on
you are going to walk away an expert. Everything I know about Elvis came from Full House and John Stamos involvement, okay?
that.
Like it's you oh, I can't wait. I'm thinking right now of a very specific episode. Anyone who may or may not be listening knows what episode I'm talking about, where we get a great Elvis John Stamos performance. All right,
Okay.
yeah, I'm stoked for that. But yeah, Elvis is a big thing
Oh yeah, you
in this
can
show.
definitely tell. It's a large part of his personality.
Danny goes and checks on the girls, and they are still awake, which he is not happy about. Steph is wearing an adorable dress to sleep in preparation for school the next day. Have you ever done this? Have you ever slept in your clothes for the next day as a kid, thinking that you were being productive?
No, no, not at all. I've definitely gone through the prep of like pulling my clothes out and like laying them out, but I was always taught to do that. Like when we would get ready for school the day before, like the first day of school, basically, my mom would run us through. We'd pick out our outfits and we'd lay them out, but we weren't allowed to actually wear any of our school clothes until school started.
I did it once. And then I realized, like, oh, that's probably not the best idea. But I love what she's wearing. It's super cute. It's just so pageanty. It's very cute.
Well, I mean, unless you count like high school when it started being okay to like go to school in your pajamas. I did that a number of times. Too tired to change, so I just got out of bed, threw on a hoodie, and walked out. But really, at least where I grew up, it was really only acceptable once you hit like high school.
There was one high school in an area that I was living in who actually had to make it a rule that you can pretty much wear, it's casual, it's a public school, but you cannot wear pajamas anymore. because it had just gotten too, I think it was just too much. um,
I mean, like, bro, at least I'm here. I'm here, right? That should count for something. Why does it matter if I'm in my
right,
PJs? I'm here. I'm
right.
paying attention. What do my grades look like? We should be judging on that.
No,
You can't
no.
wear
How about
pajamas
you
if you
don't
have.
judge me on my grades nor my attire and just let me do me?
It's like, look, if you got like a 2.5 or above, you're allowed to wear PJs. Anything under that, you guys need to learn how to be more productive anyway. So start learning how to get dressed. I'm okay with that. But damn it, I had good grades. Why can't I wear pajamas? I'd be upset.
I actually, I feel you on that. I definitely can agree with that. So we have the men in the kitchen where Danny inquires about the rest of the little serenade that they had in the tub. And Jesse explains, we finished Love Me Tender, did a short medley from Viva Las Vegas, and I got the hell out of the tub, which is the first hell of the season. One of like a few that we get. After a while, like it's super, super family friendly.
I mean, I was kind of here for. I feel like it's always productive, especially in these family shows, to add a little bit of adult humor because there are usually adults who have to stand by and watch it. And if you want it to stay on for longer than an episode or two, you have to give the adults something to at least listen to while they're running around the house doing their thing. And I think that was one of the small moments. But again, kids are sponges, and I don't know how many kids from that point decided to start using that word as a part of their vocabulary. But I know that a lot of the sailor terms I use to this day, I got from TV shows.
I definitely got mine from the block, but yeah, no, but it was they were somewhat classy about it. So we have the scene with the distribution of the lunch boxes. We have a Jetsons lunchbox, and Joey does a impression of basically the entire show, which is really cool. I really like it. I never really watched the Jetsons; it was a little bit before my time, but
Mine too. Did I think I saw maybe an episode or two, like in passing, kind of like with this. But I could not for the life of you or for the life of me, for the life of anybody, pick somebody. I couldn't tell you what it's about. Couldn't give you
yeah,
any character names, nothing.
I only know that one of my favorite Family Guy cutaways is a Jetsons. Or actually, all of the Jetsons ones are pretty good, but there's.
You know what? I think the only reference to the Jetsons I have was like a Futurama episode, and that was hilarious.
Yeah, so I mean, the Jetsons has made an impact to generations after it. And then we have a Barbie lunchbox for DJ, and she's not feeling it. Whatever that lunchbox is, if that was an actual real Barbie vintage lunchbox, that would be going for so much money on eBay right now.
Oh, 100%.
Like any real vintage Barbie stuff.
Especially after the Barbie movie, which just hyped it up even more. Oh, yeah, 100%.
But DJ's just a little bit too old, so Danny suggests that she try to sell it to a first grader, which not a bad idea.
Not a horrible idea, but how many first graders walk around with any money in their pocket? Like, real. If they have to bring a lunch, I don't think they're bringing any money for lunch.
Maybe it's like a super rich kid, and then their parents give them like $10.
You would not be completely off, I don't think, especially considering Danny's like literally on TV for his job consistently. They live in a pretty nice neighborhood. So, I mean, yeah, might be I don't want to say the privilege coming through, but it is a little bit. I didn't get to walk out the house with money in my pocket. I'd be lucky if I was able to go up and buy candy while we were at the grocery store. I was lucky if I was able to touch the candy while we were at the grocery store.
Nah, for real. It was definitely a little bit of a different time. But hey, she could have made a profit off that. She could right now if she wanted to, but
would have made a better profit if she got a little voice for her Barbie lunchbox too. Like, why couldn't she get a Barbie impersonation? I will never know.
Oh yeah, like apparently Joey just doesn't do Barbie, but why not, bro? Because he will, and I mean, this is going to be seasons later on, but he will do he will play with Barbies at some point throughout this show. It's not one of the biggest continuity issues that we're going to have in this show. There are other issues, but Joey definitely does do Barbie, or at least he grows to be able to do Barbie later on, and we will get there.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna hold this moment in my back pocket so I can bring it up for when that pops up.
I'm sorry, I don't want to like continue jumping around from the series, but it's been out for a while, so, and I'm not giving away any spoilers. It's just things. So DJ uses that opportunity to promise to take care of Steph, which is really, really sweet. Um, Danny gets his camcorder out and catches them walking out. I do know that there are some of those parents out there who really love to capture the first day of school. I do have a pair of friends who are twins, and um, their mother had taken a picture of them together on their first day of school all the way up until college. Even if she had to do it like, okay, we'll do you today and you tomorrow, I don't care, but I'm still getting my pictures.
That's
And
hilarious.
I just love that. I love when Danny gets his camcorder out, and they start singing "Sunrise Sunset" from Fiddler on a Roof, which is an absolute classic. Anybody who's into musicals or musical theater knows this song, but you can also find it in The Lion King. Timon and Pumbaa kind of sing it when Simba starts hanging out with Nala again.
Yeah, I think Disney is where I would have heard it from. The old classic Disney was probably like the first and realistically like the only introduction I got to like musicals and period, realistically. So Fiddler on a Roof, not familiar with. Lion King, very familiar with.
So we get an applause from the audience because it was a really cute moment. And Steph just kind of makes a U turn, walks right back in, and refuses to go to school. Danny asks her what's going on, and she tries to convince him that she is sick. Joey coaches her on how to do a little bit better, and she uses Joey's tips to pretty much convince DJ right off the bat that she's already sick, which is it was just a cute little moment of comedy right there.
I loved it. Like specifically, I loved the look on Stephanie's face when she realized that Joey was kind of messing with her. When he was like, "Oh
Yeah,
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 see, that's how you trick somebody." The way she kind of looked at him, like, "Really? I had it. I had her, and then you had to say trick. You just messed up the whole. It was hilarious. I laughed.
yeah. She's so detailed, that little girl. It's almost scary. Danny sends DJ to go to school by herself, and he asks he asks Stephanie, "Don't you want to be smart like all of your like everyone else?" And she says, "I'll stay home and watch public television." And he kind of asks her again. She says that she won't know anybody. It'll be really scary, and she won't know anybody, and she won't have any friends. And the men all kind of join in to try to help and ease her mind at the idea of going to school. And even though it could be scary to do something for the first time, there's always great first time stories, like Jesse trying to get into his first time, which I thought was
Super
completely inappropriate.
inappropriate. Oh my god, super inappropriate. I understand the man doesn't have kids and he hasn't really lived around them, but I don't understand how somebody can think, "Oh, first day of kindergarten. This reminds me of my first time." It's just so crazy. I'm trying to figure
Yeah,
out
no.
that logic track, and my train just keeps going derailed.
Yeah, it was. I get that it was for the funny, but that was just straight up weird and
It
inappropriate.
was
But
so weird.
yeah, thanks, Jesse, but no thanks. So we cut to the school. Steph wants to leave immediately. She is not having it. And she sees another kid struggle, saying that they're never going back in there. Never, never, never. And just screams and runs off, which is pretty funny because I always feel bad for the kids in those situations. I'm like, oh man, this kid is so stressed out. And I know that the parent is too, but it's like, but I don't know. I always feel bad when I see like a public tantrum.
I don't know. I guess okay, maybe it's because of like the time that I grew up in, right? Me and you kind of both grew up in the time, and we've talked about this before. Like whoopings were definitely a thing, or uh, I don't know how we're meant to term this, I guess, but um, getting physically disciplined was definitely a thing, right? So, I mean, I guess it's because I never was the one to like throw public tantrums. And if I was, the physical discipline kicked in immediately, regardless of who was standing there. I have a hard time understanding it because I never physically really did that. And if I did, I don't remember ever doing that. I do know I have siblings that did a couple times, and I really do mean just a couple of times because that's all it took before they stopped doing it. So it's always just kind of been like a running joke in my family when you see a kid like throwing a tantrum in public, you're like, "Yo, control your kid." And again, that's like a running joke in my personal household just because it wasn't public tantrums weren't a thing and they were quickly disciplined out of you if they ever became a thing.
Never really something that I did like I definitely had the same experience, but witnessing it and witnessing it to this day, I do feel bad because that's how you know that that kid isn't getting, what is it, corporal punishment or physical punishment or anything, but the parent is also struggling like with, well, how do I just get them, like, could you please just do what I need you to do? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of, you're at a crossroads. So it's like I'm like, I admire the fact that you're choosing the hard road, but how else can we deal with this? But I don't know, I am nowhere near a parent. I've also
At
heard the
all.
phrase, you know, so yeah, I just kind of feel bad because I know that it's difficult for everyone.
Yeah, and everybody has different parenting styles and what they're most comfortable with. And I also get that it's going to be different when it's your physical child. There's a emotional and physical attachment there that me and you are not going to understand because we're not parents. So it's like, again, take our opinion with a grain of salt. That's just kind of how we grew up. And I grew up with a single mom. I think you did too. So discipline was just different.
Danny tries playing with Steph to help ease her in, and she makes a joke where it says, "This is like the lollipop before the big shot, isn't it?"
Smart girl.
Like she is just not convinced that anything is going to go well, and definitely smart girl. After trying to use the slide and imagining the barrel of monkeys waiting for them inside, Danny has to change Michelle and leave Steph to kind of wander into the school indoors by herself, but she finds Uncle Jesse waiting for her in there, which I thought was kind of like, it kind of threw, I remember it throwing me off guard a little bit. I was like, oh, okay. You get like, you're just, they kind of like relay raced it, handed the baton, like, you know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. And can I just say, I think this is the first time I've ever seen, like, is Jesse really an exterminator? Like, is that really what he does as a day job? Because I think this is the first
Yes.
time we've ever seen that referenced.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about any one-liners or hints to it in the first two episodes, and I'm not immediately. So yeah, this is the first indication that we get that he is an exterminator.
Which is helpful because I think episode 2, where they were arguing over who was going to watch the girls, and it ended up being Jesse who got stuck at home because he wasn't going to be making any money from his practices. But then, like, we get to this part, and you're like, okay, so you really don't make much money on your music, period. To a point where you actually have to have a day job, which again is fine. I get you have to like pay the bills and whatnot. It's just interesting that he decides to keep that part of him like ghostly in a sense, and just leads with I'm a musician, which I love. Manifest that shit. I absolutely love it. But it's just it's interesting to see that just kind of thrown out there in this episode, just like, oh yeah, y'all should have known that. Like, oh yeah, he's an exterminator. Uh, Since when? I had no clue. There was no hints to it. Didn't see it in his luggage. It was never brought up. Like, we've never even seen him go off to work before.
Yeah, and you know, I do love that they give him a day job, and I love the conversations that we will be having about jobs versus passions. I'm going to let him say it, but Joey has an amazing explanation about what performance is. And yeah, we'll definitely get into all of that. But I also love that he leads with musician, but he does have that day job. It's a very realistic approach to
Yeah.
what being a musician is back then and now. So it's really cool. And exterminator is a freaking amazing job right now. That is one thing I cannot do. So
Mm-hmm.
don't sleep on your plumbers, don't sleep on your exterminators, don't sleep on anybody who can actually do anything with their hands, because just like South Park said, they're the ones who are going to have hotels in the freaking space and everything.
Bruh, look, I could not do what they do. I have mad respect for that.
Facts. So Jesse tries to offer milk to all of the children in exchange for friendship. They want the milk. They don't necessarily stick around for it. So then he tries his personal charm and creepily interacts with a little girl who is on point with her whistle.
Oh my gosh. The smirk was the creepiest thing. It was like the lion before the kill. That smirk was like it's funny that we brought up Lion King earlier because it was kind of giving Scar a little bit like that little side smirk. Oh yeah, that one. I'm grabbing that one. It was so weird, and I can only imagine like at the same time, it kind of felt like a testimony to what we saw earlier with him bringing up his first time as an example to make Stephanie feel more comfortable. It's just, you could tell he's extremely out of touch with what would be appropriate and inappropriate with kids. But then we still get these moments of like, okay, no, he knows what he's doing. And then we get these moments of like, wait, what is wrong with you? What's going through your head right now? So it's just, I don't know. I can't tell if it's like we're seeing character development, if I'm getting a bit of whiplash because the character is literally kind of switching back and forth, or like I feel like I need to see more from the series to really be able to figure out if it is character growth or if we're just switching between the two for comedy factor.
Really, really good question. And I would love to see what your opinion is on that, because I'm going back and forth in my own head, even with the knowledge that I have on the show. So, with your new eyes and your knowledge on scripts and stuff like that, it's going to be interesting to see how you interpret it.
Yeah, I'm excited to pick it apart, and we're going to be doing that as we go through completely. I'm going to keep bringing up things that I can remember. I'm trying to store everything in the back of my head so I can bring up these references as they pop up, but I know there's so many episodes, it's going to start getting hard to do that.
Joey walks in and starts doing his thing. He gets all the kids to do duck, duck, goose to try to get Stephanie to make some friends, which is, I think, normally would be very effective. Duck, duck, goose is like the kid favorite game. It's so much chaos, but it's controlled chaos. It's a great kids game.
100%, like easily, he had the best idea out of all three of them, was to sit down and get the kids involved in a game that required you to like actually interact with each other, even even though you're not talking to anybody. By the end of it, you're all laughing and falling out like exhausted, and you have little moments. It makes it easier to then go up and like, start coloring with somebody, or to talk to somebody, or to say anything to anybody, because you've already kind of all had this laugh in one big group. It was a good idea up until he got interrupted.
Exactly. And I do want to just quickly mention there's a little bit of a runner here. Jesse had introduced himself as Stephanie's father to the teacher, which is why he got pulled away to kill something with 8 legs in the closet, which is weird. It's one bug.
And apparently they don't have a janitor or anybody else there who's not scared of bugs. Apparently it is a school full of people who are scared of spiders, and they could only grab the one exterminator that happened to be in the classroom.
Yeah, and he just takes the opportunity, which is crazy. But also, we don't know how big it is, so maybe it's something crazy.
I mean, I would have understood if the teacher was hot, but because she was older, I'm just like, maybe he's just being nice. Or maybe he has a thing for older women. We have no idea. I don't know yet, at least.
Maybe he just really was like, well, this is my job. Let me step up. Let me make these extra $20, $30, $40.
You're assuming she paid him for it.
Facts.
I think he just went in there and did that one for free. It was a pro bono kill.
So the teacher then finds Joey in the middle of all of the controlled duck, duck, goose chaos, and he introduces himself as this pretty little girl's father. Danny, right at that moment, walks in and introduces himself as her father, and we get the actual real approval from Stephanie, because she kind of just wasn't denying it before. Like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we catch DJ outside parkouring. She's about to hop the fence, which is pretty impressive that she's doing it in such a pretty dress. Danny catches her outside, and he just kind of starts grilling her. What is this? Ditching school? Going to be a juvenile delinquent and rip off a 7-Eleven?
Oh, yeah. He jumped to that. He jumped. That was... I've only seen that kind of Olympic style jump from one thing to another in my own house, because my mom has that same kind of brain where she will jump from like one. So you're going to do this, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. I remember at one point I told my mom that I had a friend who was living overseas, right? And I was talking about possibly maybe sometime down the line, like going to see him. She's like, okay, but like, don't move there. Do you know how they treat women? I'm just like, bro, I just said I was going to go and visit. It's just a travel. I'm not packing all my bags, selling a house in my car and leaving for good. Calm down.
Yeah, and it's also just the amazing connections that they will make, because I'm a high school dropout. I've never ripped off a 7-Eleven. I've never ripped off anybody. So yeah, it's just very interesting. It's just that protective nature that sometimes makes perfect sense and sometimes does not. But it's just those things that you think will send your kid down the wrong path. It's like, as soon as you see those first seedlings of it, just as a parent, it's like, I must do everything I can to stop this. But
you start playing on the defensive instead. I get it.
Yeah. So what DJ explains is that she's embarrassed to have been put in the advanced class because all of those kids are omelet heads. And she's also split from Kimmy. She won't have any classes with her. Danny explains that it's the omelet heads who rule the world and tells her that if you don't try new things, you will never know what you're missing out on.
First, bars. Bars. I think everybody needs to hear that at least at one point in their life because it's completely true. 100%. Second, it's the chefs that hire the omelet heads that then get to work as gears for the people who rule the world. That's all that is.
Yeah, there's different benefits that come with wearing many different hats.
Mm-hmm.
The omelet heads might rule the world, but I mean, they talk about this a lot actually on Pod Meets World, where it's like how different types of intelligence can be used elsewhere
Mm-hmm.
in different ways and can actually get you ahead in certain areas. But in this case, DJ's just a traditionally smart kid and she's embarrassed about that. But I don't feel bad for her because I always struggled in school. So it's like, I'm not going to feel bad for you for like doing well. But I mean, it's really, and he's proud of her as well. Danny's like the advanced class, like, oh my, yeah, but I can understand that it's not the cool thing to do well in school, but it's kids, it's kid logic. But ultimately, both girls just can't do it. They can't do it, and Danny is about to give them both a dual lecture, but DJ asks if she can talk to her sister alone, and
Woman to
promises not to
woman.
make a woman to woman, and promises not to make a break for it. They have a moment where Danny and DJ are kind of getting serious for a second. He's like, "Okay, I'm trusting you, but you're not just gonna, take advantage of this trust." And they have that quick understanding, which I think is really, really cool.
No, I agree. I think that was just a really sweet moment. It pulled me back to the ending of the first episode when uh, Danny and DJ kind of sat down and had that really sweet, heart to heart conversation about, DJ feeling like she's losing everything, and Danny's just like, I'm really trying, but I also understand what you're going through, and I'm just gonna really need your help, with your sisters and with the house and whatnot. Like I'm gonna be depending on you for certain things. And this was the first moment where she's like, you know what? I got you, Dad. I can take care of this one. It was really cute. I liked it.
It was really cute. And she, using kind of the same logic that Danny just gave her, she tries to convince Steph to give it time and says, you can't run away every time you're scared. If you don't try new things, you'll never know what you're missing out on. And realizes that she's just regurgitating what Danny had told her. And it's really cool that we get to see that lesson just cascade down and around the family.
Yeah. No, I also love that they kind of brought it right back around to her being like, yeah, but I'm not going to tell her that Dad said that. And I'm also not going to tell her where I heard it from. I'm going to say, I heard it somewhere. I'm just smart like that. And I thought that was, regardless of who gave you the information or how it gets to somebody else, as long as it gets there, that's what matters. And it's really, really good advice.
It really is nice. And DJ says that she's right there next door if Steph needs her, which I think is really, that is also super nice,
Mm-hmm.
to allow your little sibling access to you if they need you it's a very nice thing to do.
Yeah, especially in unfamiliar places. It's like that they're not going to be in the room, but there's still something comforting knowing that if you walk down the hall, you'll be able to find them.
Right. And that gives Steph what she needs to be able to get integrated into the group. She gives the boys a thumbs up and they leave confidently. And that is the end of our show.
This was a good episode. I thought it was really heartfelt.
What was our not in my house moment, if any?
The not in my house moment, I think we kind of discussed it a little bit earlier, would be the getting dressed for school before school. In my house, it was very much a thing. When we buy school clothes, it doesn't matter if it's a month before, 2 months, 3 months beforehand. You don't get to touch your school clothes until the first day of school. They better not touch your body. So that wouldn't have happened.
Right. Yeah, the sleeping in something.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it would have just been the refusal to go to school. It would not have been handled quite as gently as the way Danny did, and
Oh, yeah.
And the boys. So I really thought it was cool, and it's a great example of us seeing what could easily be taken as an opportunity to just get mad and start yelling and use force, but they really they get down on their level, they use empathy, they try to understand where these kids are coming from. And it took a while. It took all the way them getting there and all hands on deck. It had to be all three of the boys and DJ. But
We were basically halfway through the whole morning of class.
they got her there, and they
They
got her
did.
there healthily and safely, which
And she
is
felt
very
comfortable,
sweet.
which is really nice.
Exactly. What was our get the violins moment?
The get the violins moment. I'm gonna have to go with the talk between Danny and DJ, because it did pull me back to that first episode, that talk that they had beforehand, and that, if I remember correctly, that was my get the violins moment then too. So I'm gonna have to say this one as well, because it also brought me back to that first episode, which definitely brought violence.
Right. I also really love that conversation, and I really loved specifically that one line having been passed down from one to one. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's more of the conversation between DJ and Stephanie. Just seeing two kids take care of each other, I think, was maybe the more. It was generally just one big heartfelt. Like after a certain point, it was just very, very sweet the whole
Yeah.
time. But I think that it came to the two girls helping each other with this, because I'm sure that like in DJ helping Stephanie, she also kind of gained a little bit of confidence because she's like, okay, well, I can't tell her to do this if I'm, so
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really cool. And our full stop moments, which moments from the episode may not have aged so well?
Jesse talking about his first time trying to give an that
Same here.
yeah, that
Completely inappropriate. It could have been anything else, or no, but definitely same here.
it really could
Yeah.
have been anything else. It could have been the first time you played an instrument, could have been the first time you got on the back of a motorcycle.
It could have even been his first kiss, if we really need to, like
it could have been his first time playing live music. Like somebody who's had such a life, and you can tell based on like the way that they've written his character, he's the type of guy who has a lot of stories because he's lived a lot of life, right? You have a lot of firsts. You could have pulled from anything, and that's where your mind landed.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And then we have a dad like Danny. What parental practices did Danny put into place this episode, and how do we feel about it?
For me, it would be kind of the point where you said for you it was the not in my house moment, with Stephanie coming in being like, I'm not going to school, and the guy's trying to figure out what that was. I would say that would be my dad like Danny moment, 100%. Just because of the way that he handled it was not what I would have expected, but that's because, again, of my own experience. I would expect it to be handled in one specific way because it's the only example I ever had.
Definitely. I think that was also my dad like Danny moment. Yeah, he's just, I love his approach when these things happen.
Agreed. Completely.
But yeah, anything else we want to throw in before we wrap things up?
I just thought this was really, like I said beforehand, heartfelt episode. I'm very curious to continue watching Jesse and see if they're going to continue to use his ignorance as a comedy wall, in a sense, as a way to continue to just lighting that, or if at some point we'll see some of the growth we've seen take place and kind of hold. So I'll be watching Jesse's character very closely. He's the most interesting one so far.
Yeah, he's definitely when it comes to all of the shows that I love and all of the sitcoms that I study, basically, his character development is one of the just craziest. And yeah, I'm really excited to get into it. But yeah, I guess we shall send off.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
Please remember to like, subscribe, follow, all the things, and stay tuned for the next episode. Until then, this is Dax.
And M reminding you
to never walk away angry. Full His House was produced by M and Dax. Theme song by Fire Will Rain.